Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Headlines. Today is Wednesday, September 14, and I am afraid, for better or worse, today's edition of Coffee and Headlines is extremely cultural. I think we went a little overboard, but I hope you'll enjoy the content because a lot of things are happening. There is Mexican independence, there is Charro Day, there are concerts that I've heard about. And there are a few news, of course, but today we're definitely going to take a big shower on Mexican culture. So I hope you will enjoy that. But before we go anywhere, let me first welcome each and every one of you to our get-together. We do this every morning, 10:30 in the morning. Well, not on Sundays, Monday through Saturdays, live here on Facebook. And then the broadcasts become available on YouTube later on in the day. Those of you that watch on Facebook, of course, have the chance to be live with us and share your comments. If this is the first time that you're doing this, please feel free to let us know that you are new by writing the word new in your comment, and we'll give you a very nice little welcome. And if there's something really important that you wish to share with us, you can help us find your comment later on today by adding a capital letter Q at the beginning of your comment. With all that said and done, let us get started with our content, which is going to be juicy. Yes. Well, we hate to keep you in suspense, so we're happy to announce that local authorities have confirmed that there will be fireworks tomorrow night. Yes. Along with the rest of the musical activities that have already been announced, tomorrow night is the first of 2 days of celebration of Mexican independence. Yes, we start tomorrow evening, and we have the fireworks. And then, of course, on September 16 in the morning, we have a parade. So if you were planning on going to the Malecón to enjoy the fireworks, know that there will be fireworks. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen with the weather forecast, but the fireworks are on, along with other celebrations. Now, that said, and despite the fact that COVID-19 cases continue to be on a steady decline, health authorities continue to advise the health guidelines currently in place, along with getting caught up with your vaccine protocol if you are missing shots. Yesterday, we announced that there are vaccines available for every adult that is missing any shot, from the first one to the booster shots, as of today. So if you're out and about, know that there's going to be a ton of people out there, and that you will want to rely on your own sense of security as to how involved you get in the crowds, whether you're wearing a face mask or not, and so forth and so on. So please be kind to yourselves tomorrow, and make sure that you take care of yourself first and foremost. Now, the next news item it's short, but I can't help but to have a little bit of commentary about it. You know, we here in Mexico, we have democracy. We go and vote for our government, and we select our candidates based on the fact that we trust that they will take care of us and they will know what to do when they're elected and so forth and so on. But every now and then, a government does something that is so careless and so you have to wonder who is advising these people. Nayarit, our neighbor state of Nayarit, decided to go and commemorate the Niños Héroes yesterday, because yesterday was Niños Héroes Day. But the Nayarit government had the audacity to change the national flag colors for the colors of the Morena party. Now, let me just give you a little bit of context here. In Mexico, the Constitution specifies very clearly the sizes of the flag, the colors of the flag, the proportion of the flag, when it can or cannot be used, when you can wear it and in a uniform if you are working for the government. So to go and fart around with the colors of the flag not only is a big constitutional no-no, but there are sanctions for this. It's not like, I think in the United States, you can go and wear the American flag in a T-shirt, and that is not against the law. I could be wrong on that one. But here in Mexico, it really is amazing to me that that Governor Navarro, who has apologized on Twitter for this, of course, would be advised or so ill-advised to do something like that. I know that there's a lot of things to worry about, but this is big, big on the news at national level today. How very sad and how very careless in my book. Moving right along, and this is right before the weather. If there is one thing we can thank Hurricane K for and all the rain it left behind is the fact that 210 key dams and reservoirs throughout the country have reached their full capacity, and some of them have even gone beyond full capacity, fulfilling our need for water for months to come. And this is, of course, wonderful news. Will it continue to rain? Well, let's take a quick look at the weather forecast and we'll see what's in store for us. Well, that cloud looks like the GIMP chained up in your kindergarten teacher's basement. Okay, that's a little obscure. I don't even know who the GIMP is, but that's okay. 26 degrees right now. We have 98% humidity, so if you're going to be out and about, I'm going to be out and about today, it's going to be schwitzy. And our temperature in Fahrenheit degrees, of course, is 79 degrees right now. The forecast says we're going to have rain and humidity throughout the day with a high of 31 and a low of 25. Tomorrow, Thursday, there will be rain in the evening and overnight. So this could be a wet Independence Day or Independence Eve celebration with a high of 31 and a low of 25. And Friday, we can expect rain in the evening and overnight with a high of 31 and a low of 25. And hopefully that will not hijack the parade. The military parade. Remember, today is the Charro parade, and we're going to talk about charros in a second. And then on Friday, we have the military parade. Now, let's see. And of course, the local weather authorities continue to be concerned about Tropical Depression 94E. It is presently looming out in the Pacific quite near our coast. It is not expected to head inland, but there is a chance that it could turn into a tropical storm by the weekend. So can we expect more rain in days to come? Absolutely. Now let's start getting a little cultural here, if we may. I have just learned, thanks to my dear friend Tommy, and I'm usually the first one to find out about these things, but my friend Tommy alerted me of the fact that the Jalisco Philharmonic has announced their third season to take place featuring one different program each week. This is in Guadalajara from October 6th through December 11th. One different program per week. The Jalisco Philharmonic usually performs Thursday evenings and Sunday matinees. And when these performances coincide with other performances in the city, it becomes practically irresistible for yours truly. And, anybody that has the ability and the means to take off and going to Guadalajara and enjoy the symphony or other cultural events should definitely consider doing it. There is one particular weekend, just to give you a sense as to why I'm so enamored with Guadalajara. The weekend of October 22nd, on Friday, Teatro Diana is going to show a performance of a play called The Exorcist, based on the book by William Peter Blatty, I think is his name. This is going to be a serious drama and very scary, I suppose. Then the following day, on Saturday, there's the Metropolitan Opera matinee. They're going to be performing or broadcasting Medea by Cherubini at Conjunto Santander. Then that same evening, Mexico de Colores, which is the first all-male folkloric dance troupe in Mexico, is going to dance at Conjunto Santander, the same place where the opera takes place. And then Sunday, the Philharmonic will perform its matinee at Teatro de Gollado. Do you think I want to be in Guadalajara that weekend? Absolutely. Will I be able to do it? We don't know. But we will keep our fingers crossed. And there's not only that weekend, but lots of wonderful opportunities to enjoy all kinds of wonderful things in our capital city of Guadalajara. Moving right along, as I mentioned before, today is National Charro Day. And there is a parade in town starting at 11 o'clock, right after we conclude our broadcast at the corner of Basilio Vadillo and Ignacio L. Vallarta. This is in Colonia Emiliano Zapata. And of course, the parade will head into town, passing through City Hall and then continuing along the Malecón and other points north. So if you're out and about, this is the day in which all the charros of the region come out and do their activities, and they show us their charroing skills. So this is a great photo op for anyone that enjoys Mexico's traditional sport. I want to share a few facts about charro, the concept, the word, the idea, the activity that I ran across as I was doing some research, starting with the fact that the word charro was first documented way back in a 1627 Spanish book. And the word at the time used to mean, was a synonym for a dumb or stupid person. Over the 100 years that followed, the definition evolved to an uneducated, unpolished person raised in a place of little policing. Yes, that's what I meant to say. So the initial concept of the word was not necessarily a good one. When the conquistadors arrived in New Spain, as Mexico was called by them, they forbid natives from riding or owning their own horses. And we'll get into some of these guidelines later on in a second. But only Spaniards could ride horses, which of course became challenging because the Spains introduced the concept of cattle to Mexico. And of course, somebody needed to herd the cattle. So at the beginning, it was only Spanish people who had come from Spain that were able to ride the horses. It wasn't until after the Mexican War of Independence that horse riding grew in popularity, and riders at the time were known as chinacos. And by the end of the 19th century, the concept of charro had evolved to be a synonym of a very skilled horseman. In fact, one of the very first truly iconic Mexican charros in the history of Mexico was none other than General Emiliano Zapata, who was known for his horse riding skills. Now, contemporary charreria, or the skill of being a charro, was originated in our state, in the state of Jalisco, which is why it's particularly meaningful that we celebrate today. And the first charro suits, though, the first costumes, they can be traced back to 16th century Spain. So the outfit worn today by charros has been slow to evolve through the passing of time. But at the beginning, it was very expensive to have a charro suit. They were made out of wool, which in Spanish means lana, and this will connect with another factoid later on today. But after the Mexican Revolution at the beginning of the 20th century, the charro suit became affordable to anyone. It became commonplace. Prior to then, only the wealthy could afford them. And it wasn't until the 1930s that charreria was established as a rules sport, as it continues to be today. Now, let's think about charros in the movies. The charro film was a genre of the golden age of Mexican cinema between 1935 and 1959. The most notable charro stars were, of course, many of the singers that we know and admire, such as Jose Alfredo Jimenez. We talked about him just a few days ago, a wonderful singer and composer. Pedro Infante, Jorge Negrete, Antonio Aguilar, and Tito Guizar. These are all traditional ranchero singers, and they starred in all these movies where they were charros and they defended all kinds of things. In 2016, the United Nations inscribed charreria on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritages of humanity. And last but not least, it is amazing when you stop to think about a few words in Spanish that have been influenced by charro culture here in Mexico. For example, I mentioned earlier that the first charro suits were made of wool, or lana in Spanish, and they could only be afforded by the wealthy. So it is quite common in Mexico to refer to money as lana, implying that if you have lana or if you have wool, then you must be wealthy. So to this day, a lot of people will say things like no tengo lana, which means I am broke or I don't have any money. There's an expression called no te bajes del caballo, don't get off the horse, which translates to or means don't give up. Or there's an imperative, which we use quite frequently when we want somebody to hurry up. We say pícale, and pícale translates to poke it, which has to do with the horsemen poking horses with their spurs to make the horses go faster. So if you hear a Mexican person say pícale, that's where it comes from. And last but not least, when we say to somebody to hurry up and say ándale, the word andar comes from riding or means riding a horse. So if you say to somebody ándale, that means hurry up or ride the horse faster. And these are all some factoids that I gathered for your pleasure as far as the International Charro Day is concerned. Now, before we go into our comment section, I had told you that we were going to discuss Mexican independence today and go a little bit into what happened and why it happened when it happened. But I decided to wait until tomorrow, as there is a related topic that will hopefully pique your interest and will hopefully help you better appreciate the factors that contributed to detonate the independence movement in Mexico. And I truly hope you're not finding all these cultural tidbits boring, because I find them quite fascinating and I love researching them for you. Anyhow, an important thing to keep in mind as far as the independence is concerned is that between the time in which the Spanish conquistadors conquered Tenochtitlan and the time in which Mexico declared independence, 300 years went by. That's a lot of time to be under the Spanish regime. And one of the things that probably eroded at the soul and the core of Mexican identity has to be, and continue to affect our identity and factor in the sense of discrimination and racism in Mexico, has to be the Spanish caste system. And I don't mean caste as in a Hollywood production. I mean the lineage. When Spaniards came to Mexico, they quickly decided that there was going to be a hierarchy. And at the top of that pyramid, of course, were the peninsulares, or the Spaniards that were born in Spain. And right under them were the Creoles or criollos, which were Spanish people that were born in New Spain from Spanish parents. Then there were mestizos, which were born of Spanish and Native American Indian parents or Native Mexicans. Then came the Native American Indians or Native Mexicans, and at the bottom of this chain came the slaves that were brought by the Spaniards from Africa and the Caribbean. So you start to appreciate how much synergy there is in music and other arts, and how African influence is very present in Mexico. But going back to the caste system, depending on where you were in this pyramid, you were allowed to make better salaries or not, have certain jobs or not, and have a better life and have better rights. And that this seems really crazy and horrible, but the plot thickens when you consider that through the 18th century, these curious paintings started appearing that I'm going to show you in a second. And these are the casta paintings. This, what you're looking at, is a painting with 16 different panels. And we're going to zoom into these panels in a second. At the top of the left-hand corner, all the way, wait, hold on just a second. Let me see, where is my, there it is. Over here. Yes, you can see my pointer. Yes, can you see my pointer? You should be able to see my pointer. Yes, you can see my pointer. Over here, we see, and I'll show this to you. Screw that. Let me just go to the detail. If you look at this painting, you see that at the top left-hand corner, it says a Spaniard male with an Indian woman turns or results in a mestizo child. And that is at the top of the chain. And then these paintings continue to demonstrate each one of the possibilities. The next one down is if you are mestizo and you a mestizo male and you have a child with a Spanish woman, then you have a castizo child. And things keep improving or degrading on the scale as you move along the painting. For example, a close look at item number 6, or the square number 6. A few months ago, somebody was asking, why are chinos called chinos in Mexico, and what does it have to do with China? Well, nothing, really. But when you were a Moorish male and you married a Spanish woman, your child was known as a chino. Now, this is just one set of paintings that I am showing you, and all the different combinations that you could have. These paintings were commissioned by the upper class in the 18th century, were commissioned to Mexican artists to create for wealthy homes. Some artists created the whole 16-panel set, and other artists created individual paintings, and they were always labeled. And it is very highly debated by scholars nowadays whether these guidelines were simply guidelines, were they warnings for people to be careful who they ended up procreating with. It is unclear as to whether all these guidelines were enforced very closely, or whether people took them with a grain of salt. But the bottom line is that these paintings are real. You know, they were created. They are in museums. And the other thing that is very real is that a lot of these concepts continue to affect Mexican society in a horrible, tragic way. We see all kinds of issues with upper class Mexicans that are paler in their skin and they think they're better than the darker Mexicans. It is something that has taken centuries to dissolve from the way of life here in Mexico, and continues to be an issue. So think about 300 years of this and think about how the Mexican independence movement was just about ready to burst when it did. And tomorrow we will discuss how this came about. But in the meantime, there's a great article on Wikipedia on the caste system. I'm going to include it with the show notes today. And of course, there are a ton of scholarly papers out there that have to do with race and identity, something that is so important not only in Mexico, but in the rest of the world. The end. That was our very cultural edition of Coffee and Headlines for today. And now let me take a quick look at your comments. Good morning, Christy. Keep the love flowing. Yes, we do. We try our best. It's a beautiful day in Minnesota. Thank you very much for giving us that quick glimpse, Karen. Good morning from Fluvial, says Sue. I love it. I love all your good mornings. Reno, Nevada. I love it. I love it. I love it. I keep thinking I should have background music for when we're looking at the comments. I'm going to set that up one of these days. Da 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 da. Enjoy the holiday celebration. Happy Wednesday. Ramona is counting 37 more days. Can't wait. Hope to meet some of you in person. I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. Harold, I totally empathize with you. This business of the fireworks, I know that it takes such a toll on our little critters. And you're right, there is the technology out there to make silent fireworks or quieter fireworks. Unfortunately, that technology doesn't seem to prevail around here. And we are going to have, our own share of kabooms, or as Marvin the Martian used to say in the Bugs Bunny cartoons, earth-shattering kabooms that are going to upset our little furry friends. That is unfortunate indeed. Da 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 da. There was big shit for the rainbow Mexican flag. Oh my goodness, of course there must have been. I've never seen the Mexican flag painted with the rainbow colors, but I'm sure how that would ruffle a ton of feathers out there. Oh, interesting. It's not against the law, only desecration. Still bothers me when any flag is tricked out. Seems so disrespectful. Again, I'm not very familiar with the laws north of the border, but I do know that in Mexico is a big no-no. Let's see. Oh my goodness, Albert. It's your birthday today. Well, happy birthday, Albert. This deserves one of these. Ta-da! Happy birthday, Albert. I know that the last few months have been very challenging for you, health-wise, but I am so grateful that you would choose to spend at least part of your birthday with us. I hope you have a great day. And I truly hope that many cluster members have wished you a happy birthday along with me. Maggie originally read charro as churro, tells you where my mind is at. For those of you that don't get that, a churro is what we love to eat, is that Mexican, very oily, sweet pastry that is fried that we love. But a churro is also slang for a joint. So I don't know exactly if your mind is on the smoking churro or your mind is on the edible churro, but I think charro, churro, or churro are all three wonderful things. Let's see what else we have. Those movies with those actors, singers were great, very good scripts. Oh, here's a factoid that I didn't include. If you go to the supermarket and you buy Mexican chocolate tablets, one of the most famous popular brands is called Abuelita, and the face of that brand is the late actress Sara Garcia, who was known as the Abuelita or grandmother of Mexico, and she appeared as the very strict grandmother in the vast majority of all these charro films. She was always the matriarch ruling the family and making decisions for everybody. Let's see. Parim pum 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 pum. I see a cue here from Sherry Cooper. Is the caste system in society and music alive today in our generation? Certainly not as explicitly as we see here, needless to say. I mean, I think any society in the world would be horrified to label, well, be horrifying. It would be horrifying to know that any society today would label children according to the genetics of their parents. So, no, it's definitely not alive as blatantly as that. But do we see discrimination today in society? Well, Sherry, all we have to do is look around, and unfortunately, it is real to a certain extent wherever we go. Dave says, "I'm sorry, but history can be disgusting." Yes, I completely agree with you, but in this particular context, I think it helps people, or hopefully it'll help us appreciate how it is that some people in Mexico carry a big chip, a cultural chip on our shoulders as far as this particular history is concerned. And I'm sure similar things can be said about other cultures. Ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. Oh, Sean. Oh, Sean. That is quite a joke and a statement, and I think it is it is thought provoking. Because Sean says, "Is that painting at the Sonora Grill hostess station to decide where to seat people?" Well, shit like that happens. And you go to nightclubs, and some people are preferred, some people. It's everywhere. It is everywhere. Let's see what else. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Another counter. Hello from damp and cold Seattle. Can't wait to be home in just 17 days. Starla, I hope your arrival will be uneventful. Oh, Earl. Earl is in Provincetown. I love you. I don't always tell you that, but I love you. Earl, for those of you that don't know, is my dear, 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 dear friend from college. And I consider every day a blessing when I am reminded of the fact that we have been friends for such a long time. Lots of happy birthdays for Albert. Thank you very much for joining me in giving Albert a good day. And this, my friends, brings us to the end of a very cultural edition of Coffee and Headlines. Again, it's that week. It's Mexican Independence Week. We'll go back to our newsy stuff, but we will always hang on to cultural, interesting things that we love to share here, as long as they help us better understand our lifestyle and better connect with Mexico, the country that we choose to live in, Puerto Vallarta, the city that we call home. Have a great day. If you get a chance, go out and enjoy the Charro Festival. Great eye candy. And I'll see you again tomorrow.